Hello everybody, I'm Never a Dull Moment, and today I'm going to be talking about why I sold my e-bike that so much of you watched me recommend in my last video. It's a bit awkward. Alright, jokes aside, I was recently checking on YouTube and I realized that my video on the Anchier electric bike is actually my most viewed video ever on YouTube. So at 12,000 views, it's not crazy in terms of YouTube, but I was really happy with the kind of support that I received and all the good comments and just views in general. So thank you for all of you who watched. And because of that, I felt that it was necessary to go into some detail about why I ended up selling that bike. So I would say if you're looking at getting that bike, I wouldn't discourage you from buying it. Most largely, I think it had to do with my personal usage and just how it didn't really fit with my lifestyle anymore. I will say that the bike wasn't built as fantastically as it could have been. If it was a higher quality bike, I might have kept it around longer. But just in general, I don't think that it fit my lifestyle and really what I needed. So the one issue that I did see that did come up with it was that the crankset did get worn. I'll kind of put a picture of that up here because it's hard to describe, but basically the gears on those, I noticed they started to get kind of warped and flattened and everything. I think that was a combination of the part being lower quality, not being adjusted correctly, and also probably my less than fantastic shifting because I hadn't ridden a bike in a long time. So I wouldn't say that's a huge turnoff if you're concerned about it getting worn, if you plan on using it really regularly. New cranksets like 35 bucks. If you can find a nice local shop or just install it yourself, then it's a pretty cheap upgrade. But that was something that I noticed with it. Probably the nail in the coffin for that bike was the range. So riding carefully, I could get maybe between 25 miles out of a charge, which is not too bad. You know, that's probably within the reasonable distance that people would be commuting for. But something I didn't like was that I knew that it's just a property of electric batteries. The more that you charge them, the less of a charge they'll hold. So if that makes any sense. Basically, a battery will be rated at a certain number of like charge cycles. So it might have, say, 1,000 or 2,000 or 4,000, whatever it is. But essentially, after you've charged it, if the charge cycle is 1,000 times, when you hit around 500 charges, it will stop holding as much of a charge as it did before. I'm kind of dumbing this down. It's a more complicated concept. Same thing happens with your phone, but you notice it more if it's an actual vehicle. It won't really be as powerful as before. That's another thing, is that if you go below a certain level of just an individual charge, it actually won't deliver the same amount of power. So some of those limitations I didn't like. And certain things, like if I would ride somewhere and then I would decide to go ride somewhere else, I would get some range anxiety. So I didn't love that aspect of it. In addition, it didn't really go quite fast enough for me to justify like it really being electric. So the top speed was about 18 miles an hour without pedaling, maybe 20-ish with pedaling, which is not super speed at all. I actually decided to buy a regular road bike when I was out here. I found a really good deal on a used Fuji road bike, paid $300 for it, and I actually preferred it to the electric bike. I could just tell in riding it that it was of higher quality, and it just generally was kind of nice to have something that was much lower weight. I think it weighed something like 40 pounds less than the electric bike. So it just sort of had more of a natural, more comfortable feeling to ride. And I still own that bike, but I ultimately found that the better solution for me was just to sell that and kind of not try and use it for daily commutes. When I sold the electric bike, I ended up getting the majority of what I paid for it back, and I still kind of wanted to find something to sort of fill this void of, you know, I didn't want to have to drive everywhere, but I didn't want to have to bike everywhere. And in browsing Craigslist one day, I found something that was a really good solution. So I found a Honda Metropolitan scooter and I saw it posted. I saw it initially, it was like $750, and then I was just keeping my eyes on it, and I watched the price go lower and lower. It went down to like $675, then $650, and then finally I saw it one morning, and I was like, I have $550 in cash. I will meet up with you today, and I will buy this, like, pretty much as long as it's running, as long as it's not a pile of junk, I'll take this scooter. The guy said yes. I met up with him, and that was that. And I can get into all the sort of ins and outs of, you know, buying a scooter and how it's a little bit different. It's not super different from a bicycle, believe it or not. There's not as much, you know, as many strings attached like a motorcycle might be with the registration and everything. But again, separate video. But ultimately, I think as opposed to just yammering on for another 50 minutes, I'm just going to hop on my scooter and explain to you why I use it 6 to 7 days a week and why I way prefer it to an e-bike.
Definitely not an excuse for me to get out and ride today. Definitely. No, 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 no. This was purely high quality YouTube production content. Alrighty. So, here is my 2004 Honda Metropolitan, the bargain Craigslist find. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why I traded in my e-bike for it. So first of all, I'm actually doing really good. I'm speeding right now. I'm going too fast. But yeah, so one of the big things that you'll notice immediately, or maybe you won't, but I did, is just your ability to keep up with traffic, and you know, probably up to a certain point, of course, probably up to like 35 mile an hour roads, 35 mile an hour roads. Your ability to keep up traffic is just completely different than on an e-bike. Stop here. Full and complete stop. All right, turn in here. Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely going faster. See, I'm already hitting 20 there. And watch out for this guy. But I mean, I would say this is actually very similar to riding a bike. I talked about this a little bit in my previous video, but just to reiterate, in case you haven't seen that, very similar to riding a bike in a lot of ways, but it is just faster. So I'm doing 35 now. Got a guy coming up here. So I don't know. It's hard. I guess it comes down to the kind of the lightness and the general small size of the vehicle. It doesn't feel foreign from a bicycle very much. So I like that. I like that it's kind of still just a fun little vehicle to ride. And many other things. Get over here. But yeah, it's very fun to ride, and it is incredibly cheap to run these things. Gas is like amazing. I get about 100 miles to the gallon on this bike. I fill it up maybe every week and a half or so. I've actually put I'm over 600 miles from when I bought it, which is kind of crazy because I've only had this thing for like maybe a month and some change, and then I've been out of town for some of that time too, and I mean, I've been riding this thing a lot. Probably this commute that I'm doing right now is something I do about 6 days a week. Yeah, so I do want to do a little bit of a compare and contrast. So first of all, first disclosure, I don't want this to sound like it's like I'm trying to sell you on buying a scooter or don't buy an e-bike or anything. I don't want that to be what this is about. But I do think it's worth noting that there are other options out there, and that that scooters are, you know, in a lot of ways at least, they serve the purpose better than an e-bike does. But I mean, a lot of people have their own, you know, different uses and stuff. Maybe they just really don't want to pay registration or anything like that, and which is okay. I keep like dancing around this. I might as well just bring it up in this video anyway. So if you buy a scooter, at least in most states, if it's less than 50 cc's, you are required to register and to get insurance. Registration costs about $6 for 3 years, and insurance, what I currently pay as a 21-year-old, is about $77 for the year. So, yeah, it's pretty dang cheap. So, I mean, I can understand if you have, you know, oh, I don't want to get, you know, insurance and that kind of thing, but it's really not as much as you would expect. So I wouldn't let that weigh into your decision making too much. In addition to that, I mean, yes, I think that you really should be wearing more full gear while riding a scooter, because if you're going to be on, you know, more kind of streets and you know, riding with traffic and everything, you should have at least a good helmet and a jacket. I also wear these nice leather gloves here. I wouldn't skimp on the gear, so that is definitely an additional cost to factor in. So I think that's definitely where it starts to make a bit more sense. Maybe if you don't want to wear the gear all the time and stuff, you might just feel a little bit more safe on a bike. I think that's a fair choice. I am running out of juice here. Not juice, because this is a gas-powered vehicle, but it does struggle on the hills a little bit. Yeah, so I mean, the gear is definitely a consideration. You don't need any sort of special license, at least in all the states that I've looked at. Under 50 cc's, again, you get that little nice exemption. So you just have to have a regular driver's license. Another little comparison that I'd make is that I do think that electric bikes are faster off the line. So like that little acceleration I just did. I would argue that an electric bike would kind of take off more quickly. It might get up to like 15 miles an hour more quickly. But then of course it's going to run out of juice not too long after that, depending on the bike. But scooters just have much more potential to actually go faster. Wow, this is running really well today. I haven't. I'm getting down to like 40 on flats, which is really good. Yeah, he's gonna let me go. What a nice guy. What a wonderful bloke. Let's see if this guy sees me. There we go. Well, YouTube, I think that I have officially run out of things to say. So I guess that by default means that this video's over. Can't really think of a fantastical outro or anything. I guess I'll see ya.